Hello and welcome. I'm Jeffrey Mishlove. Today we'll be exploring a religion that I suspect most of our viewers have never even heard of, Mithraism. And yet, I think it's fair to say it's one of the most influential of world religions that have never been heard of. With me is Jason Reza Jarjani. Jason is the author of several books, including Prometheus and Atlas, World State of Emergency, Lovers of Sophia, Novel Folklore, and Iranian Leviathan. Welcome, Jason.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Jeffrey.
I suppose for those of our viewers who have heard of Mithraism, they probably know that it was very influential at the time of the Roman Empire, and probably very little more than that. But let's go over some of the ways in which Mithraism actually has an influence in our lives today.
Well, it's true. Most people have probably heard of Mithraism in the context of Christianity, if they've heard of it at all. And in fact, many of the rituals still practiced by Christians today, particularly in the Roman Church, are Mithraic in origin. So, for example, in the communion, in the Holy Communion, the wafers are based on loaves of bread that were inscribed by a cross in the Mithraic communion ceremony that was performed in subterranean Mithraic temples. And we'll talk in a little while about what the meaning of that cross symbol is. But they did have these loaves of bread inscribed with a cross, and they also drank wine at these Mithraic communion banquets. And the wine was laced with Amanita muscaria mushrooms, which were intended to produce a kind of out-of-body experience. Mm. The cross that Catholics put on their foreheads, the ashen cross that they wear on Ash Wednesday, also comes from Mithraism. It was part of the initiation rite of the grade of the soldier. So there are 7 grades of initiation in Mithraism. And in the initiation ceremony for the grade of the soldier, the initiate had an ashen cross put on his head. And they would also place a crown on the soldier initiate's head, and he would throw the crown off and say that my crown is my Lord. And the idea of being a soldier of Christ comes from this initiation rite. The most important Christian ritual, namely the ceremony for the birth of Christ on December 24th into 25th, was originally a Mithraic ceremony. As best as we have any historical understanding of when Jesus of Nazareth may have been born, that would have been in the spring, not in the winter. But the Mithraists celebrated the birth of Mithra from a virgin mother on the night of December 24th into the morning of December 25th. And there are other symbols associated with Christmas that are Mithraic as well. For example, the evergreen tree, or sarv in Iranian culture, is a Mithraic symbol. Mithra was associated with greenery and life. And in the Mithraic religion, there are 3 colors that are particularly important that wind up as the tricolor flag schemes for all of the countries that were at one point part of the Iranian world and that were touched by Mithraism. And that's the green, white, and red color scheme, which you see every season at Christmas. This was originally a color scheme that stood for the 3 major castes of ancient Iranian society. The farmers or producers, green, red symbolizing the soldier class, for of course blood and fire, and then white as the color of the royals. And you see this on the flags of Iran itself, of course, and then Tajikistan, which is a Persian-speaking country to this day, and among the Kurds in northern Iraq. Actually, the Kurdish variant has the sun right in the middle of it. And then in Bulgaria as well. And, you know, our viewers might not realize that Bulgaria was an Iranian country in its early history, and actually for much of its ancient history, it was really the bastion of the Sarmatian branch of the Iranian family. And I think that the green, white, and red of the Italian flag also comes from the predominance of Mithraism in the Roman Empire. So this color scheme you see at Christmas every year is also Mithraic in origin. And, you know, Santa Claus, who pervades our popular culture is a peculiar persistence of Mithraic imagery. First of all, his hat, which is also the Smurf hat, is the Phrygian cap that was worn by Mithra in depictions of Mithra and by the Mithraic priests. That hat, the Phrygian cap, that's a Santa Claus, proverbial Santa Claus hat, was also the basis for the mitre of the bishops of the Catholic Church. And then the clothes that that the Santa Claus figure wears is based on a Scythian riding outfit. Iranians invented pants. You don't see that in Greco-Roman culture. Pants were invented as a kind of clothing that allowed for easy horseback riding, together with the boots, and then this jacket bound by a belt. And then again, red is a color, associated with Mithra, because of Mithra's being symbolized by fire. Mm-hmm. So all of this Christian symbolism that we're surrounded by to this day is Mithraic in origin.
Mm-hmm. Well, it strikes me from what little I know that Mithra might have evolved out of the ancient mother goddess. There's some ambiguity even as to whether Mithra is a god or a goddess. So it could be one of the most ancient of deities.
Yes, and a very prominent symbol that highlights that is the Statue of Liberty. So it is true that the Greeks who are writing about Mithraic Iranians occasionally make peculiar references to Mithra as a goddess rather than a god. And to this day in the Persian language, Mithra is a feminine name. It's a name used exclusively for women. So it's possible that the consort and mother of Mithra, a goddess by the name of Anahita, who becomes Artemis in the Sarmatian branch of the Iranian culture, and who's worshipped as the mother of all the Gorgons by the Scythian branch of the Iranians, it's possible that this goddess figure was split off of a more primordial image of Mithra that was at least androgynous, if not feminine. And many of the depictions of, most of the depictions of Mithra are very effeminate. Although Mithra is a very forceful character, and his features are very effeminate. And what's particularly interesting is that in the second grade of initiation in Mithraism, the grade of nymphus, the initiate basically had to become a transvestite, had to embody the goddess. And so the initiate would dress as a woman and wear a crescent diadem. If you look at the Statue of Liberty carefully, you'll see that in her hair is a crescent. And from the crescent are emerging solar rays. Mithra's head was haloed by solar rays. And in the grade of initiation known as the solar charioteer, which is the penultimate grade of initiation in Mithraism, the symbols associated with that ceremony are the oil lamp and the torch. So the Statue of Liberty, which was designed by a Freemason, Bartholdi was a Freemason, and as a Freemason, an inheritor of a lot of Mithraic esoteric symbolism, the Statue of Liberty appears to be Mithra, symbolized in the imagery of the grade of Nymphus and the grade of Heliodromus, or the solar charioteer.
Fascinating. And I suppose another important historical landmark is that the whole Roman army nearly became converted to Mithraism. Throughout the area that was once occupied by Rome are Mithraic temples that were built, I gather, by the army.
Yes, and two of the most significant military, you could say, rituals and symbols to this day are Mithraic in origin. One is the military salute. This salute is Iranian and Mithraic in origin. And what it originally symbolizes is shielding your eyes from the glory of the king or the military commander who's haloed by the sun like Mithra. So it's I shield my eyes from your solar glory. That's the origin of the military salute, and it's Mithraic. And the other is the fasces, which in the Roman Empire was carried in military processions. And you see this image in carvings of Mithra on rock cliffs and so forth in Iran, particularly in investiture scenes where a king is being crowned. you see Mithra holding a bundle of sticks, which in Persian is called the barsam. And the barsam basically symbolizes unity and strength. The idea being that a single twig can be broken, but a bundle of twigs is unbreakable. So that's another military symbol that, comes from Mithraism.